We can start off with that. What brought you here? How did you get started in all of this? I know you shared a little bit of your story when we first met, when you were speaking, and there's not a lot of speakers that really kind of captivate me by their story and their story alone, because yours is very different and it's very interesting. So tell me a little bit about how you found being a success coach, working with Bob Proctor, and all of those things.
Well, great question. It was a
Loaded question.
Loaded question, yeah. So it was a journey. You know, I had been in the entertainment business for 30 years. So I have a master's in directing, and I had a theater company in San Francisco. Everything was just theater and film, TV. And then I was a personal acting coach to the Olsen twins for 10 years. And so my trajectory, I had an acting academy in the San Fernando Valley, where a lot of my babies are now doing really well.
Wow.
And I realize now that their success was not necessarily because they were good actors, but because I taught mindset. So I've always been fascinated. Yeah.
So what was it then? Because I didn't really hear much about it then, but what was the mindset that you were teaching at that stage to these wannabe huge actors?
Right. So the mindset that I was really teaching was their own recognition of self-worth, self-value, and preferences, the difference between, somebody else's belief and somebody else's opinion or somebody else's thought versus their own. And what I would do is I have all the kids line up to be the different parts on a film shoot, let's say. So somebody would be the director, somebody would be the actor, somebody would be the critic in the audience, somebody would be the AD. And so they rotated and took all the parts so that they grew an awareness of what it took to be a director. What does it take to be somebody who has to give feedback as a critic? What does it take to get everybody organized on set when the director calls action? What does it take? So that a lot of actors, even in my own training, right, are so focused on themselves and their performance and doing a great job.
Of course.
But their awareness outside of their job, and it goes for everybody on set.
It goes, I would even say it translates to everything in life. When you're able to have a better overview of everything, it's like there's a different level of appreciation for all the jobs that they do, and then a different level of understanding when they've done it themselves. Especially, I would say that the critic piece, because it must be tough to give critical feedback, and it must be tough to hear it, but to both give and receive, you have a better understanding of where it comes from.
Right. And I taught them how to give constructive feedback, right? So the importance is that when you give constructive feedback, it helps you distinguish between somebody who's giving you feedback and whether or not it's constructive.
Of course.
Right? So, I mean, a 12-year-old will come to me and say that their agent said that the casting director told them that their cheeks were too big.
Yep. I was going to say, I feel like that, I don't know the industry personally, but from people that do, I hear that it can be so cutthroat and so harsh on your confidence. Constantly being brought into an interview for them to then say, you're not good enough because of this or that.
Right.
That is, there's very few industries, I would say, just in the real working world, that they're going to dig so deep at insecurities and confidence and self-worth. So teaching that mindset probably in that field expedited their results.
Yes.
Okay, so you started there.
That's why they have the ability, to brush it off their shoulders, off their backs.
Which is insane. Right? It's such an accomplishment for anyone, but especially in an industry like that, where it really does tear you down just by the nature of it.
Yeah. Exactly.
Okay, so you started with the mindset there.
Yeah, but I wasn't really aware that I was doing that. I just knew that I wanted everybody to be able to receive feedback, right? And develop a tough skin so that they made their own decisions or came up with their own opinions about what somebody had to say about them. And then it was 2 months before my 25th wedding anniversary that my husband died suddenly, and he was diagnosed with 4th stage lung cancer and gone 3 weeks later. And so I went into a collapse. essentially. So I stopped all my coaching, I stopped my private practice, I stopped my acting academy. I just wasn't available to anybody, you know. And so I went on a journey of discovering what I was teaching, which was basically I didn't know how to love myself.
Oh, wow.
So that's what took me into exploring why is it so complicated to change.
Mm-hmm.
And then as I started to, just maybe about a year after his passing, just getting on my feet again, I found my mother-in-law dead. Then my father died in front of me. Then my best friend died in front of me. And then my brother-in-law died jumping out of a plane and his parachute didn't open. So it was like a 2-year period of just like all my support system disappearing.
Yeah.
All the people that I sought validation from.
And everyone you love.
And everyone I love.
I mean, that's the,
Yeah.
I truly can't imagine.
No, it's not an easy one to imagine.
No,
Yeah.
not at all. Not in the slightest. And that's why I said there's not a lot of stories that really I'm wowed by.
Mm-hmm.
And I just can't imagine what you went through for that year, and then even the consecutive years after,
Yeah.
whether it's calling a mom, calling a dad, calling a family member, and thinking they're not, all of these people that I love, that I
Mhm.
laugh with, that I enjoy time with, that I
Mhm.
confide in,
Mm-hmm.
all of those people in such a short, unnatural time.
Yeah.
You know, everybody has natural progression of life, I understand,
Mhm.
but in such a short time, I just can't imagine how intense that must have
Yeah.
been.
Yeah. And what people don't realize is that my husband was 47, and so all of our dreams, the life that you know, the way that you have dinner, making phone calls to go to the movies, what movie do you want to see, all of that is just gone. Just gone.
Everything that you know.
Everything that you know. And we had been together since we were 19, so I didn't really know my life as an adult without him, right? So there was a lot of codependence, there was a lot of attachment, and there were a lot of dreams that we built together. So we had he was in the entertainment business as well. So it was just too painful for me to stay in the entertainment business, you know, because of all the reminders.
Yeah.
And I just didn't know what was next. I had no idea. All I knew was that I was suffering from what's called situational PTSD.
Okay. And
So-
what is that? Can you
So
explain that?
it's post-traumatic stress disorder. So when something traumatic happens, right, there's a part of your brain, the limbic region, and that holds on to the event. It's kind of like, think of veterans,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, of course.
So a lot of them come back and they're in PTSD. And so I couldn't stop looping. I couldn't stop looping seeing everybody die in front of me. So that also, what most people don't realize is when you're grieving, your serotonin levels lower. They get depleted.
Yeah.
And so my serotonin levels were pretty low. And I had a lot of self-sabotaging behavior. So I spent about 3 years, 2 years of the experience of people dying around me, and then 3 years of trying to join them on the other side.
Yeah.
You know, so that was quite a journey into that dark night of the soul. And then what started to happen, and I lost a lot of friends. Nobody wanted to be around me. I don't blame them at all.
It's tough though.
You know, and like you said, the people that did support me, that called me every week, that checked in every day, they all died. You know, not all of them, but a majority, right? And then so the friends that I lost, again, I don't blame them. You know, because I was in grief and anger and despondency, and I had always been somebody. I had never experienced depression in my life. I didn't have tools. I didn't know the tools, right? I didn't know how to even access the tools.
Yeah.
And because I had always been a teacher, I had always been the one, you know, giving advice to everybody else, and I was always positive.
And now you're broken.
And now I'm
So how
broken.
am I going to fix this?
That's right. That's right.
Okay. So after that 3-year period, that was a lot of self-sabotage, you said?
Yeah.
How did you even begin to kind of crawl your way out of this?
You know, I think what started to happen was I had an experience with a medium, a channeler, and he was amazing.
Really?
And it was the only time that I had a smile on my face, because I pretty much drank myself into a coma every night and got up at 1 o'clock every day. The only reason to get out of bed was to feed my cat. Right? I just didn't. I was a puddle on the floor.
Yeah.
And but this psychic that I found, and I mean, I can laugh at it now, you know, but he was there. He was a big support system because he, you know, channeled my loved ones on the other side, and there were amazing experiences, and then amazing synchronicities started to happen.
Wow.
But then he died.
What?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Are you serious?
I am serious. So, you know, it was kind of like, okay, I'm on my own again. But what I started to do was pay attention to signs, pay attention to energy, pay attention to synchronicities. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to have a beautiful urn for my husband's ashes. And I couldn't find one anywhere. I even went to France looking, you know, in the pottery stores for an urn. And then I came back and I decided that I was going to make his urn. So I joined a pottery class. And in that pottery class, you know, your first class, there's no way that you're going to be able to throw an urn, you know, that
no.
It was like,
I've done it.
Have you
That's why
done it?
I'm laughing.
Right?
Yeah.
It's like
no chance.
No chance. I made like a little pot out of my hands,
Yeah.
you know, and there was just no way that that was going to be his urn, you know.
Yeah.
But so I continued. It was another reason to get out of bed was to get to that pottery class, because I found that when I was working with my hands and in the clay, that it helped me center. And all the images of people dying in front of me started to go away. And then when I started taking wheel classes and just going around and around and around, if you're not paying attention to that clay, it's going to go flying.
Yeah, it
So
demands your focus.
It demands your focus. It demands you to be present. It demands that you give it attention,
Mm-hmm.
right? Otherwise, it's just not going to turn out very well.
Yeah.
So that was kind of like a meditation for me. And I had lost my memory. About 6 months after Patrick passed, I said to my mom, you know, what was my grandmother's name? And she said, you don't remember Nan's name? And I said, I don't remember Nan's name. She said, you were named after her, Barbara. So I was like, you know, I was really out of body and just checked out.
Disconnected
completely. And it was through the pottery class that one day I built a little teapot. It was like one of my first projects. And I painted it the colors of the rainbow, and I had a memory. And the memory was when I was 8 years old. I used to go out to the river down by our country place in the summer, because I'm from Montreal, so we didn't get out to play very much except for the summer.
Yeah.
And in the sun anyway. And I just would dig into the water for patches of clay. I would find like this sticky earth. And then I would pull it out of the water and I'd pull out all the stones. And I would make these square teapots and paint them the colors of the rainbow.
When you were a kid?
When I was 8 years old.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And here I was now as this adult in, you know, PTSD and very, you know, losing my memory. And then my very first pot on the wheel, or when I got a little bit better, was a teapot that I painted the colors of the rainbow. And from there, I was injured by throwing my father's urn at the clay. I pinched a nerve in my neck, and I couldn't feel my arm for a year. And that moved me into what's called precious metal clay, which is just fine silver with plant binders and water. And I started doing jewelry making. Mm-hmm. And again, that was a place where I could zone out, just zone, you know, just work with my peace. Finding peace, right? Yeah. And then from there, somebody recommended, I started a pottery studio at a healing center. And so I was calling my classes the healing gift of clay. And then the woman that I had this healing center with recommended that I sign up for a program, a master's program in spiritual psychology. Mm-hmm. And that was about 4 years after Patrick passed. Okay. And that was not with no intention of coaching, no intention of, you know, working with people.
It was just for you.
It was just for me.
Wow.
Just for me. So I got to express a lot of my feelings, and it was an amazing, very intense program. And then from there, I still didn't know what was next. So I joined, I certified as a law of attraction coach in a year-long program, not to become a coach, but to heal myself, just keep working with myself. And I started to move forward. And then I had to work with people. I had to work with people to certify.
It was part of the program.
It was part of the program. And then these people started to have like amazing results. And I was
like,
going,
this is incredible.
I was like,
who would have thought?
Right? Right? And I was like, I never was taught goal you know, how to achieve goals, the success principles, the concept behind, you know, focusing on, you know, your outcome. It was always about seeking approval outside myself versus living from the inside out.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that program, I wrote a book called True Love, True Self, A Journey to Self-Love. I say I had to lose the love of my life to find out I didn't know how to love myself. And in that book is my journey, you know, with my late husband, how we met and our story. And then the latter half of the book are exercises, how that helped me to overcome my grief, helped me move forward, helped me, you know, start to navigate a new path.
Yeah, and reconnect with yourself,
And
right?
reconnect with
Really
myself.
build the self-love, because I think a lot of people fall victim of that, end up getting
Mhm.
love from their parents and then love from their family, and then as they grow
Mhm.
up, it's love from a significant other and
Mhm.
from their friends, and then they hit a point where, you know, maybe they ask themselves, do I really love myself?
Yeah.
And that's where the big time work comes in, and that's
That's
kind
right.
of what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And so from there, you got these people amazing results.
Mm-hmm.
So was it something that you fell in love with? Was it something that you were maybe, it piqued your interest? How did it transition from there to here?
Basically, it was paying the bills.
Yeah.
You know, it was like, I have to get back into the workplace.
Yep.
I have to get back, and I had been a freelancer my whole life. I had never had a 9-to-5 job ever,
Okay.
right? So I was always, you know, either my own theater company, or I was
Yeah.
teaching drama classes, or I was in my acting academy, or I was working on set. It was all
Yeah.
contract work.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't, if I knew then, Liv, what I know now, I wouldn't be here, because I didn't have the value that I have now. I didn't perceive my worth
Yeah.
then, right? And so even when I was working on set with celebrity kids, I just didn't know how to ask for what I was worth,
Wow.
right? So there was a lot of wealth around me, but I wasn't accessing it for myself because I just didn't understand the concept of self-worth or self-value.
Yeah.
You know, I was just surviving. Let's get a job, let's
Yeah.
work, right? Let's pay the bills.
Let's survive.
Let's survive, right?
Yeah.
And so then finally, I started investigating a little bit more about working with clients, but then I didn't really know how to make it a business.
Mm-hmm.
So when I met Bob Proctor, Bob taught me how to blend business and spirituality.
And how, before we go into, how did you meet him first?
I went to an event.
Okay.
I went to an event, and it was
Mhm.
called Make a Million Look Small.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. And Mary Menon Morrissey was there, Peggy McCall, Gay Hendricks, and Bob Proctor. And Bob just really spoke to me because I was very intrigued with how to build business and wealth consciousness. And because I had always been good at taking care of others, right?
I love that, though.
Yeah.
What a good way to get into business.
Yeah.
Right? Because
Yeah.
you're doing it for all the right reasons, but even there, it's almost self-sacrificial at a point where
Right.
I'm only making ends meet. I'm not
That's right.
investing in my wealth and in my future in a way that I could.
Right.
So now, how can I build the business side?
Exactly.
Because, you know, there's a lot of people that do it flip-flop backwards, who knows. So
Yeah.
continue. So you
Yeah.
met him and you just aligned.
And I just aligned, and then I explored his program, but it was a lot of money. It was a lot of money. And I decided to go into my savings for it. Best decision I ever made in my life.
Now you're probably looking back like, I couldn't imagine if I didn't do it.
That's right. And then I started to understand, you know, that the more you pay for something, the more skin in the game, right?
Mhm.
And because I had that skin in the game, I just really got out there.
Yeah.
I just got out there and started speaking and networking and just showing up for myself, showing up for my clients, just showing
Yeah.
up, you know. And the program that I facilitate is called Thinking into Results, and it's 12 sessions, and I get together with groups in person or online. And it's not an inexpensive program, and it's
Of course.
designed that way because you get to a certain point in the program where you want to quit, you know, because it just feels hard.
What's that point? What is it where people are kind of looking at it like, I could just
Yeah.
go back to what I was doing?
Yeah. So what happens is, it's like the analogy that I like to use is like climbing Mount Everest,
Mhm.
right? You just kind of get to a point at Mount Everest where you reach the altitude sickness point.
Yeah.
right? And you just don't know if you've got it in you to go on, right? And so a lot of people turn back to the foothills, right? Because it's just too difficult to get past that obstacle. And in this program, we work with what's called a C-type goal. So we don't work with goals you've gone after before, as you heard, right?
Yeah, this was crazy to me.
Yeah.
I really, really liked this too. So C-type goal.
Yeah.
Explain that.
Yeah.
Because this is what you ended up doing the talk on. This was
setting, you know, a lot of people are going after repeating what they've done before. And that's called an A-type goal, right? It's already been done before. There's not a whole lot of stretch in it, but it's consistency, right?
Okay.
But then people are complaining that they don't have enough. So a B-type goal is when you think that you can do something like write a book, right? But there just isn't enough excitement in it. You're just not doing it. And why aren't you doing it, right? But a C-type goal is when you dig down, when you dig really deep into what's that dream, what is it that you really, really, really want? And then you proclaim what you want, and then it has to scare you and excite you at the same time. And if it doesn't scare you, you're going in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
It's just, you know, you're not going to find the mojo, you know, and it has to be a committed decision. And a decision's not a decision until you're in action.
Yeah.
Right? And it's got to be a committed decision. So like I was explaining to you, like one client, the 72-year-old woman that I worked with, right?
Yes.
And she wanted to lose weight, right?
I love this.
But she knows how to lose weight. She knows how to hire a trainer. She knows how to eat right, right? And there's just not enough fear and excitement in that to make it a C-type goal.
Yeah.
So once I asked a few questions and found out that she really admired Ernestine Holmes, who's an 86-year-old bodybuilder, I said to her, well, how about you signing up for a bodybuilding competition? She jumped on it.
Did she?
She jumped on
I wasn't sure. Because with something like that, it's either like, finally I said and she said something I've been longing to do my whole life. Or on the other hand, it was you suggesting something that really scared her. She was like, I can't do that.
Yeah.
So I love that. I love that. 76 years old and she
72.
jumped. 72.
She signed up, right? And then she was in the gym every morning at 5 a.m. She could do a plank longer than her trainer, and she's 72. And she bought her pink fuchsia bikini, all of it. She was set to go. And then the other goal, we work on 2 goals in the program, a personal and a professional. And the other one, she's a coach herself, and she wanted to write a book that she had been talking about for 15, 20 years. And so, she knows how to write. She knows how to sit down and, just be in the chair and write. But it wasn't enough for her. So the C-type goal was, how about you invite 20 of your friends to listen to your first draft in 3 months? Right? So she said yes, right? She's going to do that. And I said, but it's not a C-type goal until you send out the invitations. Because once the invitations are sent out, now you're committed.
That's skin in the game too.
That's skin in the game.
I find that a lot of times that's what really does it.
Yeah.
Is putting it out there in such a public setting.
Yeah.
That you can't back out.
That's right.
There's no ifs, ands, or buts. You are doing this.
That's right. That's right. And she's so on fire now that she's got her second draft. She's done her second salon. She's got the cover of her book. I mean, she cannot not write. So she's writing 4 hours a day now, because she built the habit. So the program starts you there, and then it goes into creating habits and actions to create a strategy for, moving toward this dream, right? And then as soon as you start doing that, change starts to occur. And this is what I've, paved my whole journey on. It's why is it so complicated to change?
Yeah, that was a question you asked yourself
at
the question. Very beginning.
Yeah. And so I've just been on this journey of why is it so complicated to change? And Bob had a lot of the answers for me. I've since done a lot of work on neuroscience. I'm also considered a neuroplasticity researcher.
Wow.
I'm certifying as a brain coach. I just am fascinated with science
and why people do the things
they do.
Okay, so what were some of the answers that you've came across that really hit a home run? You're like, that makes sense. That makes sense why people don't change, or it makes sense why people do change when you use this.
Right.
What are some of those big things that you ended up coming across?
Right. So in the program, right, you just start out with a C-type goal, and once you start to make those changes, what kicks in are your paradigms.
Yeah.
right?
And Bob Proctor talks about that endlessly.
Endlessly. So your programming, your DNA, your heritage, your schooling, the parents, teachers, media, culture, right? Everything.
Mm-hmm.
And all of that is in the subconscious mind as habit, right?
Uh-huh.
So we go on autopilot, right? So as Bob says, most people would rather die than think. And so that's what's running the show. The subconscious is running the show. The paradigms are running the show. And you keep end up saying, I tried to do it differently, but I did it again. Why did I do it again? I'm doing the same thing over and over again. And that's because the paradigm is terrified of change. It wants to keep, the subconscious mind wants to keep us safe and protected. Ego mind, same thing. It goes into fear, right? So it has the fight, flight, freeze response. It wants to keep us protected. And they're both doing a really, really good job. And so once we start to move out of the comfort zone, paradigms are going to show up as sabotage. Your refrigerator may break down, chaos.
Yeah.
All of a sudden your relationship is like out of the blue. Something, is like, what's with that person,
Mm-hmm.
right? And the truth is you are changing. But it's so uncomfortable that if you don't have your skin in the game, comfort zone pulls you right back to what you already know.
It's easy.
Easy.
It's easy. It's enticing.
Right.
It looks good.
It looks good.
No problem.
I know this.
Yeah.
I know this. I'm not going to die. So what's really going on is subconscious mind is believing that if you fail or if you're humiliated, you're going to die.
Yeah.
You're just going to die.
Yeah.
Right?
And when you're in your weakest state, which I think during this big change, during these types of times in your life, you're going through highs and lows.
Mm-hmm.
And they may not be highs of lows in a sense of depression or things like that, but
Mm-hmm.
they just may be highs and lows of believing in yourself and
Yeah.
knowing your self-worth. And on those low days, that's when that going back to the comfort zone
That's right.
is so attractive.
That's right.
You're like, no
That's a
problem,
really
I can
good
do
point.
that. I can, and it's always disguised as procrastinating, hesitating,
Yeah.
doing other things that are
Perfectionism.
not perfect. Yeah,
Mhm.
perfect. Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
perfectionism. That's what I see the most.
Yeah.
'Cause
Yeah.
I can't send this out because I'm a perfectionist.
Right.
I'm like, well, sweetheart, it's been 3 days and it's a 1-page thing.
Right.
Send it out.
Right.
Send it out.
Yeah.
Where's the resistance coming from? What is it really?
Mm-hmm.
So,
And perfect doesn't get done. Right?
Oh,
We
yeah.
know that. Perfect does not get done.
yeah, perfect's another. I'll do it tomorrow. I'll
That's
do it
right.
tomorrow. I'll do it tomorrow.
That's right.
So how is it that you approach paradigm? How do you shift the paradigm that,
Great
like
question.
you said, you were brought in? Because
Yeah.
it's everything. It's culture.
Yeah.
It's parents. It's friends.
Yeah.
It's you. It's
Yeah.
centuries and centuries of heritage.
Yeah. Well, again, the next part of the program we go into, once people get through these paradigms,
Mm-hmm.
right, we call it crossing the terror barrier, right?
Okay.
So that you really have two opposing vibrations in your body. You've got your dream and you've got your old self. So it's new self, old self that are going at battle, right? When you understand that anxiety is really just opposing vibrations.
Okay. I
Okay.
like that.
So you've got an X, which represents your old conditioning, and you've got your Y, which represents your dream. And when you start to emotionalize that dream, right, and it comes down into your body, because subconscious mind brings emotion
Yeah.
into the body, right? We interpret language into pictures, and pictures create images, images create feeling. And so feeling drops into body, which then creates vibration, which then creates action,
Yep.
right? So thoughts become feelings, become things, right? And so when you're in that, the old self, new self battle, but you're aware that that's what's going on, you have to get more focused to the new self.
Mhm.
And that means doing things differently. So I tell people, be illogical. Hug the walls of your home. Really, just do things repetitively, affirmations over and over again, dance them, sing them, read a book over and over and over again, the same book. Repetition, repetition, repetition. A belief is just a thought you have over and over and over again that you accept as the truth. And to create a new belief, you got to create a new thought and think it over and over and over again until you accept it as the truth. Then it becomes, your belief system.
Yes.
So through the repetition and then also developing your self-image. You'll never outperform your self-image. You'll never outperform what you already know.
Mhm.
So if you keep using the same stinking thinking, right, that's getting you the results you don't want, and you keep on using it thinking you're going to get a different result, you're heading in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
Right?
It's not going to change. Like they say, nothing changes if you don't change.
Exactly.
And in order to change, you have to think differently. You have to do different things. It's like, I truly believe too. I like that you said hug the walls. It's like, what the heck? Why would you hug the walls? It's different.
Yeah.
You have to throw yourself in uncomfortable, different, new environments.
Yeah.
So that you can kind of make that your norm.
Right. And you'll also see that when you hug the walls, your thinking changes.
Okay. I've never hugged a wall,
Yeah.
so I can only imagine.
Yeah. Hug a wall, and then you'll start to see that it's like, oh, I'm so grateful for the people who put this wall up for me. Oh, I'm so grateful for the people who, got the wood and traveled the roads in the truck and brought it to the store. And oh, I'm so grateful for the people who had to put price tags on. I'm so grateful to the entire system that made it an opportunity for somebody to build something so amazing so I could be comfortable.
Yep.
And I'm telling you, by the time you finish hugging the wall,
Gratitude.
you're in gratitude and you're crying tears of joy.
Yeah. Even just you saying that made me think of hugging a wall. Almost, it gives you contrast.
Yeah.
Because then you're saying, what it reminded me of at least was, think of all the people that I've hugged that also hugged me back.
Mm-hmm.
And it was such a different feeling from me just sitting here appreciating the wall.
Mm-hmm.
And just like you said, it brings you into that whole state of gratitude, which gratitude and love are just kind of, for me at least, I find that they're the key to everything. Gratitude, love, and appreciation.
Yep. Gratitude, love, and abundance are on the same frequency.
Mm-hmm.
So, right?
Boom, there it is.
Yeah, there it is.
Oh my gosh.
So-
Okay, so what can people do that is, I don't even want to say easy, I don't want to say simple, but do you truly believe that affirmations is, and believing it, visualizations and feeling it, is the key, is the way to unlock a new paradigm?
I really believe self-image
Okay.
is the key to unlock the paradigm. And it helps that you're around people, like-minded people,
Mhm.
or you're around people who pull you up and lift you up, or you're around another consciousness, or you're reading material that changes your consciousness.
Yeah.
But it's really about what is your self-image. So this is where my acting, coaching background and directing background comes into such alignment. Right?
So cool.
It's so cool.
Isn't that cool how
Yeah.
life just happens
Yeah.
like that? Like
Yeah.
something that you just were passionate about at the time, and then you didn't even realize that it was building a foundation for this other
Yeah.
thing that you would end up launching later on in
Yeah.
your life.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah, it's really amazing. And so the program that I'm working on for myself, based on the Thinking into Results program, it's called Act Your Way to Success. So the acting as if concept, right? So what a lot of people think, it's that fake it till you make it, or they have the imposter syndrome where they feel like a fraud, right? I say fake it till you make it and feel good about it. Because just like an actor wearing a role, it's wearing a costume. And that costume creates a different feeling. Wearing a different hot hairstyle creates a different feeling. Putting on a different pair of shoes creates a different feeling.
Yeah.
Walking behind somebody and imitating their footsteps creates a different feeling. It's all a different feeling, and we manifest from the feeling place. We don't manifest from the thinking place.
Yeah.
Like I work with a lot of PhDs who don't have jobs because they're just stuck in their thinking mind. But we manifest from the emotional mind. Most people buy from their emotional mind, the subconscious mind. They're not buying from their thinking mind.
Yeah.
It's about 15% of the population that are analytical and they've got it all figured out. You don't even want to sell to those people.
Yeah. They already know.
They already know.
They've made their decision.
That's it. It's done,
Yeah.
right? But then when you get people to emotionalize, so affirmations work if you connect to the emotion,
Yes.
okay? And then they work through repetition. But I have another program called Your Genius Code Unlocked, where we use brainwave frequencies to get into the lower delta state and bypass the conscious mind. Affirmations are best when you're in your alpha state, in a relaxed mind, because otherwise your conscious mind is putting up a big fight to stop any new messages from going in.
I feel like that's even just where true self-worth and belief come in, because your insecurities and your true visual of what your self-worth is, like you said, it's not your actual self-worth, but what you believe it to be at that time is always going to trump just saying whatever it is, whatever the affirmation is, which is why I find a lot of times people at least struggle with it. But even going back to frequency and energy, I always say, have you ever had a friend that just felt sad and you felt like you had to say, what's wrong?
Yeah.
Like something's off.
Yeah.
Like you feel that. In the same way that one of the things for me that I do physically that helps is I walk fast.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds silly, but I walk fast,
Mm-hmm.
sternum up. It's a very confident thing for me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so funny because I was in Vegas for an event this past weekend, and we all went out, and some of the girls were like in their heels being like, I can't keep up. I was like, I'm not slowing down.
Right.
I feel good when I walk like this. When I'm walking slow, I feel sluggish,
Mm-hmm.
I feel tired, I feel
Mm-hmm.
less energy.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm walking fast, I feel like I have energy,
Mm-hmm.
abundance of energy.
Yeah.
And it's little things like that that you can kind of embody.
Yep.
And once you start to notice, you'll recognize it everywhere. Like you said, when I put on these shoes, I feel this way. When I put on these ones, I feel a totally different way.
Right.
When I wear my hair like this, when everybody knows when they're feeling good, they
Yeah.
look good.
Yep.
I feel like that's a big piece of it as well, is not just grooming and wearing any type of clothes, but just presenting yourself in a way that makes you feel very comfortable and
Mhm.
confident and like you want to go out there and talk with people.
Right. Right.
Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what industry you're in and what goal that you have to talk to people.
Right.
You have to make connections.
Right.
You have to build rapport.
Yeah.
You have to. You just have to carry that energy that's inviting.
That's right.
Because how else are you going to create these dreams, this life that you want to live?
Right, to make connection, right?
Mhm.
And so what most people are not understanding is it's really a body, mind, spirit connection. People are either focused on body, or they're focused on mind, or they're focused on spirit, right? But it goes down to the energy you put into your body, the way that you eat. It goes down to the way you think, the way you're putting thoughts into your head. And those thoughts impact your body and the chemistry in your body, and negative thinking can really have damage on your liver. So, and positive thinking isn't just, everything's happy. It's really whether or not you're looking at a problem with the mind of a problem solver,
Yeah.
right? And it's about reaching for the next better feeling thought, because all or nothing thinking, the black and white thinking, is what gets us into trouble, because we're in reactive mode instead of being in responsive mode,
Yeah.
right? So most people are living their lives in what's called sympathetic nervous system mode, right? Survival. And even when they go to sleep at night, that's what's keeping people up, because the sympathetic system is still in that stage of survival,
Yeah.
right?
And a lot of that ends up being linked to childhood trauma and then never
Yeah.
really working through some
That's
of those
right.
things.
That's
I mean,
right.
I know I ended up having that my whole life. I was such a calm person on the outside, and I helped everyone, handled
Mhm.
everyone's stuff, and always had a good sense of humor about me, but I never really realized that I never just sat with myself. And I was
Mhm.
never calm on the
Mhm.
inside out. I was always calm for other people.
Exactly.
And I wasn't calm for myself.
Yeah.
So you really when you start breaking down where it comes from and why it's there, and then moving towards just a genuine state of happiness and success
Mhm.
and abundance, you really realize how much some of those things drag you down,
Mhm.
and then how you feel like, oh, a weight's been lifted off my shoulder. I can just
Mhm.
wake up with a lot of energy and a lot of happiness, and that's normal.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's working through some of that stuff as well. I
Mhm.
find so many people are like, that's where I'm doing the affirmations.
Yeah,
It's not working.
yeah.
Well, there's so many layers to it.
There are.
You know,
many,
we are
many layers.
complex human beings,
Yes.
and these things come from everywhere, like you
That's
said.
right. That's right. And there's so many tools, right? So gather all the tools, put them in your toolbox, and sometimes they'll work and sometimes they won't. And so you
Yeah.
have to try some other tools. Like I was just telling a client the other day where the affirmations weren't working, or changing her thinking wasn't working. I just said, go wash your face.
Uh-huh.
Just get distracted.
Yeah, pottery.
Right.
That's
Just-
what pottery
right.
for you.
Yeah, pottery for me, just something just to go for a walk. And again, as you're saying, when you walk, right, you put your shoulders back, you put your head up high, it creates a new physiology in the body. And that even like when I started to want to work in corporate, I was dressing in a suit with my pumps on. I had never done that in my life, right? Getting to my desk by 9 o'clock in the morning, pretending I was working in corporate. Right? And so then, like the next day, I'd go to a networking event and I'd introduce myself, and somebody would say, I'm a CEO. I'm like, who introduces himself as a CEO? Nobody. But I'm going to follow that energy, because
Yeah.
that's exactly what I'm after right now.
And then you feel it too.
And then
You're
you
like,
feel it.
I felt her say, or her, him, whatever.
Yeah.
I felt them saying, I'm a CEO.
Yeah.
I like the way that feels.
Right? And so it's like, okay, I'm going to pursue that because that was a sign from the universe. That was a signal. That was a synchronicity. Because I'm starting to act as if I'm starting to believe, that the feeling that I have is really something that I can practice. It's just like anything. It's like you can learn success.
Yeah.
There's success principles that you can teach, but you have to practice them. And once you practice them, it doesn't feel like you're lying anymore or you're a fraud. And one of the biggest things that people can ask themselves, because this is what I find more often than not, and what I'm passionate about when I say I'm really passionate about people living in their truth, right? Because I know that I wasn't in my truth and that it almost killed me, right? But what's the biggest lie that you're telling yourself? And most people are in lies all day long. So what they're not realizing is that that's an affirmation. So it's not that affirmations work or don't work, it's that you're affirming no matter what all day long. Yeah. So when you say I'm a moron, I'm not enough, that's an affirmation.
Yeah, I find a lot of people take the limitations from their environment and they say, well, I understand why it worked for them, it was easy. Whereas they're using their circumstances as the excuse, and then constantly that's playing in your mind.
Right.
I'm helpless.
Right.
I can't do anything to change this.
Right.
And that I find that that's one of the most deadly negative affirmations, one of the most negative deadly loops that you can get into, because you feel helpless, you feel hopeless, and Tony Robbins always says, it's not about having more resources, it's about becoming more resourceful.
Exactly.
And that's a mindset. You adopt that.
Exactly. It's really about taking responsibility for your life and not blaming outside of yourself.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's even like in the program, but toward the end of the program, you realize that the program is really about how do you lead yourself. It's called Program for Leaders, but it all starts with, can you lead yourself? Because what I learned that when I was a teacher, I was helping a lot of people make a lot of money. But I wasn't doing what I was telling them to do. I was a really
Don't
good,
you hate that?
Yeah, I was a really good teacher, right? Doesn't mean that you can't be a good teacher, but I wasn't walking my talk, right? I wasn't practicing what I was preaching. Yeah. And so they were out making millions, and I was really making the salary of a teacher, And what I came to learn was that once I focused on becoming a master, which is really, are you practicing what you're preaching? Are you walking your talk? Are you doing all the things that you're telling other people to do? Then that's when you can get results for yourself too. I'm not out there making millions for myself because that's not my focus or desire. If it was my focus and desire, I would be, creating the affirmations around that, let's say, or the goals around that. Yeah. But I am creating other forms of freedom in my life, other forms of, decisions in my life, and I know what to do now.
Yeah, isn't that powerful too? Because I feel like it's everything all together. I even had here as a note of one of the questions that I really wanted to ask. It was how much, and it's funny because we basically answered. It was how much do thoughts contribute to the outcome, the result? How much does action contribute to the results or the outcome? And my third kind of caveat question was how much does thoughts inspire action?
Right.
And you basically end up saying that thoughts are like the foundation that can create the home, whereas the actions or the walls or the makeup of it itself. Because without the thoughts, you can't have the action.
That's right. So it's really 100% thinking.
Yeah. Which is very, you know what it is? It's very tough for people to wrap their heads around. And in the entrepreneurial personal development space, I truly think that oftentimes we're saying more of the same things, and it's just coming off in a lot of different opinions, a lot of different ways, but at the core, it's the same thing. Because like you said, you're not faking it in a sense of you're doing nothing, but you're trying to act like you are. You're really not even acting like, you're just trying to embody what you're trying to become. And I really believe that the people that do this best are singers, rappers, anybody in entertainment, and athletes. Because athletes know they're the best. They say, I'm an Olympian. I'm a 3-time Super Bowl champion.
Right.
I'm going to be the best quarterback in the world. They know that before they become it.
Yeah.
And I feel like we often separate it, but it really is the exact same thing of embodying it from the beginning.
Well, you have to work with your subconscious mind.
Mm-hmm.
So we're using our logical mind, right? But we need to get to the subconscious. So we need to embed, imprint, and implant, right? And it's just, it always looks at everything as the now, because the past is not here. The future is not here.
Yes.
It's just here now. So it's going to act on the now. And so the more that you keep putting in, I'm powerful, or that I am, a leader, then you start asking the questions, well, what are the thoughts that I have as a leader?
Yeah.
What do I say as a leader? How do I behave as a leader? Who am I being, right? And so I like to say to people, you'll never know who you are. You never will until you find the parts of yourself you haven't yet discovered.
Mm-hmm. And I feel like that's such an ongoing process.
It's an ongoing process. And if you decide to stay in what you already know, you're not going to discover those parts.
Yeah.
So
You'll never grow.
You'll never grow. And so it's, how do you coax those parts out of you? Well, you've got to use your imagination, because imagination is where everything is created.
Yeah.
Because what created the chair?
Yeah.
It had to first be
This
a
is why I
thought.
truly believe in having downtime and having time away from any kind of electronic device.
Mhm.
I personally like being in nature. That's one of my
Mhm.
favorites. But just getting outside, doing something. I know physical activity can help get you in that prepared state, but even just sitting
Mhm.
and just being calm, and even, meditation has all of its own benefits, but even
Mhm.
just having, I think it was Tom Bilyeu that had said he has like a think time or an idea time.
Mhm.
I don't know. There's probably a fancy name, and it's probably way cooler than idea time. But it's basically just where it's time to be creative and think of things that you want in your future. Think of what you want in your life right now. What do you
Yeah.
want to work towards? What are you thinking about?
Yeah.
What are you feeling? And we're so disconnected from that in a typical American society.
Mhm.
I think phones are a huge addiction, even above and beyond anything like TV, radio, any of those things. And so having time away from your phone, and also just having thoughts by yourself. And I think that's a huge piece, is the isolation.
Yeah.
Having time for yourself, figuring out, because I have a lot of listeners that are from 18 to 35. And in those years, I work with a lot of people that kind of have the post-college depression,
Right.
where it's just about 2 years after college,
Mhm.
and they're like, what the fuck am I doing?
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, listen, let me explain this to you. All through middle school, all through high school, you were always preparing to go to college.
Mhm.
Once you were in college, you were prepared to getting good grades in order to graduate and then get a job. Now you got the job, and that's it.
Right.
And there's this fear. There's this, what have I been working towards my whole
Right.
life? Number one, I'm not as happy as I thought I was going to be.
Mhm. Mhm.
Number two, I've always had everyone else telling me what I was supposed to be doing, and it's like they're in this stage of breaking through and figuring out, well, what's mine and what's theirs?
Right.
What do I want for my life,
Right.
and what have I been told I want for my
Yeah.
life?
Yeah.
And so that's a huge thing in my coaching, is getting them through those stages and saying, the possibilities are endless.
Uh-huh.
When you were talking about opportunities, what it really reminded me of, at least for me personally with my clients, within my circle of people, when you're embodying something, not only do you feel more opportunistic and things like that, but when you're meeting people, when you're out and about, you are seeing things
Mhm.
that are, it's like a puzzle, right?
Mhm.
When you figured out all these pieces and you're like, one day I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna have this and this is my business and putting it all together. When you go out in the world and you have that energy and you have that frequency and you're matching it, you're just looking for missing puzzle pieces.
That's right.
And that's it. You're saying, oh, that person can help me with this idea. And that place would be a great venue for this. And
Mhm.
this is how I'm going to generate more income. I saw this ad or whatever it is.
Mhm.
And I feel like that's one of the biggest things when it really starts to come together and you get that momentum. You're like, this is what I've been working towards.
Yes. Yeah.
Did you ever have a moment like that where you came out of those dark years?
Mhm.
What was something that really just stuck out to you as things are happening, things are moving, they're going in the way that I want?
Oh my gosh. I've had so many.
Because like
Yeah.
even you said, the
Yeah.
synchronicity of
Yeah.
meeting the medium and
Yeah.
the synchronicity
Yeah.
of
Yeah, I mean, it was just so many things. I mean, I just, even with numbers, the synchronicities between, like, I just met a woman, and this was crazy, and we're going to end up working together and creating a program on love.
wow.
And I was just at the Matrix event in Toronto. I was one of Bob's consultants that was facilitating at a table, and it's quite an honor to do that. Met an amazing group of people. But I met this woman, and she, I said, where were you born, and or where do you live? And she told me, and I said, oh my God, I was born there.
No way.
And then I said, so where did you grow up? And she said, she grew up in this place. And I was like, oh my God, that's where I grew up. Now I'm, 30 years out of Montreal.
Mm-hmm.
And then she said, she went to this high school. And I went, oh my God, that's the same high school I went to.
Oh my God.
Right? And then I said, well, and next week I'm going to the country to spend a week vacation with my sister. And she said, oh my God, I have a country place there. And it was literally 5 minutes away from my sister's.
Wow.
And then she said, so I went and I met her, and we sat and we talked for 5 hours. We didn't even go for a walk. We didn't even go down to the lake. We didn't even go to the forest. We just sat and talked for 5 hours. And then she said, she had left her hometown, my hometown, and went to Singapore and was there for 11 years. But then she decided to go back home. And she said her life changed May 31st, 2003. Her life changed. And I just went, oh my God, that was the day my husband died and my life changed.
What?
So now I'm like looking at her saying, this is just too crazy.
Yeah.
It's just too crazy.
Yeah, you're like, I've done crazy before.
Yeah.
This is a whole nother level.
This is a whole other level. So now tonight I'm going to be talking with her, and we're going to be creating some things together. But
How exciting.
like those kinds of things, like, are not uncommon in my life now.
Yeah.
And have been really for a long time. Even when I went to Paris to look for an urn for Patrick, I remember being at a castle and going to a museum, and there was pottery done by Barbara and Patrick.
Wow.
And I was looking at that saying, that's interesting.
Yeah, interesting names
Interesting,
there.
yeah. And then we went to another town, and there was a little shop, and my friend pointed out to me, she goes, look at that bowl. And I looked at the bowl, and it was by Barbara and Patrick. And then on our way out of town, we saw a sign, and it said the last name, right? And my friend said, that's the last name of Barbara and Patrick. And I'm like, really? And so we went to the, what was it called at the time, like the artisan's loft, right?
Mm-hmm.
And sure enough, there was Barbara and Patrick doing their pottery.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So I got to meet Barbara and Patrick. I bought one of their pots by Barbara and Patrick, and then I started to do pottery for Patrick by Barbara.
Wow, what a cool thing.
Yeah. So
And then your
things
life
like that.
is just made up of those.
Exactly.
Those very cool synchronicity
Yeah.
life moments.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much for coming. I'm trying to think if there was anything else that I had. This is what I do. I literally go. It's so funny because different types of people, right? What questions are you asking? Can you send them to me?
Right.
I go, oh, sweetheart. I don't roll like that.
Right.
I was like, listen, I can send you some of the notes that I
Yeah.
have, but it was like I typically go full conversation.
Yeah.
But it's so crazy too, because we ended up going over basically all of this. Basically everything that I had written down, we somehow circled around to throughout this entire thing. So how can people find you? How can they work with you? How can they connect with you?
So they can go to my website,
Yep.
www.barbaradoust,
Yep.
and that's DAOUST.
And I'll link it below.
Okay, -TIR.com.
Mhm.
they can go to www.vibrantresults.com. That's the brainwave entrainment program,
Very cool.
which is very, very cool and helping a lot of people.
Yes, I need to check that out.
Yeah, it's really powerful. When we work with coaches, like this woman that is developing this love program, she is working with the program with the frequencies right now as well. And we're in 3 hospital studies, so good stuff there.
Incredible.
Yeah, and it's all, it's all science-based and all neuroscience and what they're discovering. I mean, there's such a difference between the brain and the mind, and we're just tapping the surface. The brain itself has over 140 organs in it.
Really?
Yeah.
I
So
didn't know
that's
that.
another conversation, right?
Yeah,
So,
that
anyway.
can be another podcast, another
yeah,
conversation.
yeah.
But I will link all those things below.
Thank you.
And you guys listening, definitely check that out. She is outstanding, incredible, and I would love for you guys to connect further. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you so much
It's
for
been a
having
pleasure.
me. Real
Anytime,
pleasure. Yeah,
anytime.
yeah.
You're welcome back.
You're a
whenever.
delight.
Thank you. Thank you guys for listening. As of right now, I will talk to you tomorrow. Bye.
Do you do it every day?
I typically, I'm gonna go into a stage where I'm doing it every day again.
Wow.
Yeah, so I did it every day for probably 75 days or so.
Oh my God.
Maybe a little bit less now that I'm thinking probably
Good for you.
65. I love it. I'm obsessed
You're
with it.
great. You're great.
I do all solo episodes, and I talk about anything I'm going through, anything my clients are going through,
Yeah.
and anything I have great friends, so anything I have like powerful conversations
Right.
with them,
Right.
I just sit down and like teach it. 5
Fantastic.
minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes.
Fantastic. Really, really
Yeah,
great.
I absolutely
And so
love
how
it.
long was this?
This was 57 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah, we chat. I
Wow.
love it.
Wow. Do you usually do every day, like about an hour, or?
No.
It's-
My solo episodes are, which thank God I ended up doing them because they're so easy. I
Mhm.
never stress about having interviews. They just come and go as I do them, as I schedule them.
Yeah.
I'll do a couple in a day, or I'll meet up with somebody, whatever. And I can always put out content. It's so easy for me to just sit and talk. So
Yeah.
any day of the week, I can put something up.
And you don't even have to have somebody that you're interviewing.
Exactly. So
Right.
it's the best thing ever because I started doing it. I was doing a daily one, and I got such good feedback because people had said there were so many interviews out there that were so long,
Uh-huh.
and so this was perfect